have talked about last time, the regression, and we took it as an example, the first example in neural network. So how do we do regression with neural network? The first example was a very simple one. We estimate a line generating some dots on a straight line, a simple straight line. That's what we did last time. Now we're trying to do some study of the connections between some economics variable of a country and how is that linked to the GDP of the country, okay? If we take Uganda, okay, let me pull Uganda, and we said, okay, first things we want to do, pull the data from the World Bank, look at the data, and can we make a regression? Regression means, can we explain the GDP to be a function of the other four variables? But let's go step by step, and I'll be clearer, as we did last time, I will be clearer, and what do we mean by that? Opio, I think you go ahead and record the session.
It's being recorded.
Okay, so let's go. When I will click the button here, run, and I will go for the whole process. When I click this button, okay, before I would even click on it, okay, you will see this button. It's very interesting button. This is the JavaScript code. I'm just repeating myself from last time, okay? This button communicating to an object, and the object is, we named it and we created it right here. This object know how to communicate to Python, which is on the server. Okay, pay attention. This is my screen. I'm using Academy City. This is on a server. It's on my computer. I'm sending the message from this button to the Python. And how does it do it? This button gives this command, train World Bank, okay? But it's using an object that knows how to communicate. And I repeat what we did last time. Usually this object, we create a special object, this object, and this object has this function. So when I click on this button communicates to this object that has this function called train WB. I'm transferring variables to it. What do I transfer? I transfer what is known as epochs. We'll talk about it. I transfer the country code, so the Python will go and download data for the country. I use Uganda. It's going to pull up data for Uganda. So those variables, see the epochs and the country, I'm sending it to Python. And then all of that really being sent like here. I won't go over the whole code here. But this one is sending it to Python. When I get to Python, I have that object, as we said last time. Let me refresh that again. Okay, we have those two objects in which the JavaScript communicate to. We sometimes put some stuff in this one, but most of the work we do on this one. Okay, you can tell this one is inheriting this one, and other two they do some stuff for us. Okay, I won't get into that for now. I want to focus on what we're doing today. So the one, when I click on this button, it goes to here, and this one is going to activate the function that we have right here, train WB, in this object. Okay, so it gets up to here, it gets to this object, and is going to activate train WB. The dict, it's a dictionary that has all those variables. Which kind of variables do we have? The two variables that we have, the two that we are focusing here, we're transferring how many epochs we want to run and which country. So Python in this function receive those variables. You see, we're getting the country. We can put several countries, but here we're using only one. And we're using hold a second. Yeah. Okay. I will come back to those ones in a second. Okay. Those ones really, we're not transferring those two variables. I'm just putting them there, but ignore them for now. The only two that we really care for now is basically the countries, which we're transferring, okay, from this dictionary is the one we're transferring from JavaScript, this dictionary. I'm taking the countries, there we go, this is the countries, I call it here and I'm putting it here. Then the indicator, I'm just putting indicator, I'll come back to that. But what else do I'm transferring? I'm transferring the epochs. So I'm creating another dictionary here. And two things that I take from the JavaScript that coming all the way to here. I'm taking the countries and I'm taking the epochs. You know what I will do? Let me put that one here so it will be clearer. Let's call it epochs. Okay, I'll just put it next to it so it will be clearer to you guys. Will be equal to this one. Okay, so I'm getting the epochs from JavaScript. I'm getting the epochs from the JavaScript and the countries. Okay, and how does it do that? By the way, this button, okay, this button code just taking really those two variables. You see the epochs right from here, and then it takes it from this list. Since this is a list, it knows which one is standing on. It takes the one that I chose and put them here and transferring it to this function. Okay, this function transferring it to Java, to Python for this object. This object's function transferring it to Python. It gets to there. In Python, we get those two variables. We're utilizing them. How do we do that? By the way, I made it general, so you can really use it in the future. You can just change and add more variables if you want here. But basically, I want to pull data, okay, for Uganda in this example. And I want the algorithm eventually to run. What happened here? Yeah, I should not have this one. Yeah. All right. So I'm transferring which country that I want and which epochs do I want. Okay. How many when you will train the model, but I'm not there yet. Okay. I'm taking this dictionary and transferring it to this object, WBW. Which object is this one? We talked about it last time. It's this object. One more time. We're getting request from JavaScript. Get data for Uganda. And want you to run the algorithm for whatever number, let's say 50 times. Okay? I get this data about the country, and then I'm going to utilize this object to do all the work. In another word, we have these objects communication with JavaScript, but the real work is done in this object, which we call usually analysis, or we call it AI, or whatever name. But all the work in Python going to be done in this object. We call it W World Bank analysis, and this object is going to do all the work. So in order to do that, when I'm in this object in the train function that I'm calling from JavaScript, getting up to here, I'm building up this object right here. After I build up, I'm basically calling WB analysis, creating that object. And this object himself has a function called train. Okay, so this function train basically going to do all the work. Okay, but I need to tell that object all the information. What do I really want? I basically want him to get me data about Uganda. I want him to get all the data from the World Bank about those 5 parameters, 5 variables, the GDP, the export, education, high tech, all the data for me from the World Bank. And then I wanted to be aware that the dependent variable that I want in that regression, I want it to be the GDP. And then the variables that I want to explain with is those 4 variables. So I'm taking all those 5 that I'm putting data, and I'm telling him, the one that I'm really interested to be explained is the dependent variable GDP per capita, this one, and the other 4, basically, they are going to be the explanatory variables or the independent variables, what we call them. Okay, and then when you study the model, I wanted to use whatever 50 epochs, or if I change the parameters in JavaScript, it will change it right here. Okay, good. So I'm transferring it to this WBA. All of that we did last time, by the way, I'm just repeating myself. This function train belongs to these objects, which most of the work is done here. So we're getting to this one. Okay. By the way, when I'm being activated, I'm going to go over it several times today, but I will skip it for now. I'll get back to that. I'm going to go over this color. I will go over in a minute. I want to go over the function get model, all of that one. Defining two variables here as none, meaning I'm not really defining them. I'm just giving them a name, trend data and test data. Okay, and I will explain in a minute how I'm going to use it. Okay, but for now, let's skip it. And let's focus on this function, which does all the hard work. It will use other functions, but the hard work is done here. I'm getting all the instructions in this dictionary. And basically, here we go. These are the countries. In this example, I'm going to use only Uganda. The indicator, remember all those 5 indicators. I know who is the dependent variable, the independent variables, how many epochs. And basically, this is the data I'm going to utilize here. Stage number 1, and all the AI app projects will have that stage. Stage number 1, get the data. And when you get the data, you do a lot of things. You get in the data, you clean it, you cleanse it, and you prepare it for the model to be able to study from it. Okay, so let's look at this function, which is a very important. This function, by the way, it's defined right here. Okay, it's part of the same object, as you can tell. This object has a lot of functions. So the function of getting the data, I'm not doing the whole work here. I could have wrote the whole code here. That would be really, you will get lost, totally get lost. So a nice way to do it is really defining a get data function, which going to get the data for this country with those indicators, and then we will know who's the dependent variable and the independent variable, and we will see what we're doing with that one. So we're going to focus now on getting the data and preparing it to the analysis. Next stage will be actually teaching the model. That will be next stage. So first stage, get the data, and within it, organize it such that you'll be able to use it to teach the model. So let's look into this one. Okay, this get data. Okay, stage number 1 is putting, let's call it, this is really a stage. You can call it pull data. And this case is pulling it from the World Bank. Now, the World Bank, as I did last time, it really does the whole work for us. So I put it, the whole World Bank stuff, I can use this function in the future. And this one is really just, I put the whole thing that has to do with the World Bank right there. So the World Bank itself created an object called WB data. That's something that I haven't written. That's have been taken from the internet, and it's given by the World Bank. Everybody can use it. You can use it. Okay, it's free. Okay, so I downloaded it, put it in my environment, and that model, that one gives you a beautiful function that basically you can tell that function the indicator you want, which country you want, which frequency you want the data to come, and it will give it to you. So what I'm going to do, okay, I'm going to run it so you can see the whole things. So let me run it here. By the way, this is the server. I'll run it on my computer so you can see the result. Let me refresh here. Now we'll do it on the server, okay? It's the same things on the server. Okay, I got it into here, and I'm gonna say this is the epoch. I'm gonna have him run 50 times, and I want the country to be Uganda. So I'm gonna click on this button. I'm clicking, I do yes, so I will send my message. is sending it to the server create the object, and does the whole work, is also training. He finished everything, so he already returned and gave me the data. You can tell here. I will play with it in a second, okay? Now, let's go to the whole process. From the very beginning, I open up some of the data so you can follow up the whole things it did. Okay, so let's start. The first things here that you see, print df, this is what the World Bank has given me. The World Bank giving me data from 2023 up to 1960. Usually the old data are not a good data, and now the measurements are not good. I won't get into that. You really, if you study economics, you can tell. But that's a different discussion. For now, I'm going to throw away all the data that they are before 1980. You can decide, you can use all of them if you want, okay? I just decided to ignore all data. So I took this data and removed, I filtered here the old data, took them out. So only data after 1980 I will keep, okay? And up to 2024. In fact, this one will do nothing because all the data are before 2024. So this one, but it's a nice to put as a complete block of dates. So this DF basically is a data after I filtered the years. So let me see if I have, you see this one will be 1980. You can tell here, this is already possible. You know what, I will add another one. Let me write next to it an A. I will do it slowly, okay? And I'll put this one to be A, and I'll do the same things to be B, so you can see the filtering that I did here. So we have data only starting. Let me run it again. It runs so fast. You know what, even I put 5 here, so it go even faster. I make it 5. Okay, run it, and we'll get the data again. Here we go. A, you see the A is all the data. This is it. I'm pulling all the data from the World Bank. And then second, in the B, I'm filtering it, so the data starting after 1982. Now, why is it after 1982? The date is higher or equal to 1980. Yeah, it's interesting. Why? I was expecting to see 81 as well. Interesting. I won't waste the time. That's a different topic. But basically, I'm filtering here. Let me see, why is 1st of 1980? So this is after the 1st of 1980. I should have gotten, yeah, it's very interesting. Hold a second. 60, 63. I have no idea why. Very interesting. I won't waste the time for that now, okay? But basically, this is filtering the data, filtering the data to be above 1980. It certainly should give me 1981 here. I didn't for some reason. Okay, we'll do it some other time. Hold a second. Hold a second. No, this is not what I'm getting here. That was me. This is a different one. Interesting. They have higher A is ignoring this one, I think. It's not going to give me this one for some reason. Yeah, I'm getting this error. Yeah, it didn't like me. It doesn't like this one. Why is that? Not supported between instead of string and date time. Date time. Cast level. Very interesting. Let me try that one now. Very interesting. See if it will be nice to me. If not, I will ignore it for now. That's important for me. Yeah, see, he doesn't like me for saying, see, we're getting an error here. We are getting an error here. Okay, this one I will fix and I will put it in. I don't want to waste the time on that one for now. Okay, fix error on filtering. Okay, that's all the topic. We'll deal with it some other time. Okay, we'll fix it. Okay, but I will put a comment here, but we can tell it's not really doing it. This one is probably I'm filling it, it's in a different way. We'll see in a minute. Okay, so stage number one, we fetch the data from the World Bank. Stage number two. Yeah, here we go, getting here. Yeah, the drop and probably all, I can guess only why it doesn't like me, because all of those are NA, and probably up to 82, they are all NA. That's why this one did remove it, by the way. You can tell. This one removed it. Okay. Stage number one, you should really have filtered here, and we have an error here. We'll ignore it. Stage number two, okay, we want everywhere that it has NA, we want to remove it as well. And that's what this one does. Okay. Drop NA, removing all the ones that has missing data. So what happened is in the end, all the data that we got here, all this data, we're going to remove all of data from 1960 up to 2023. We're going to remove all the one that has NA in it. And that's really the job of this line. Fair enough? Okay. Before that, if you notice, I call that function called reset index. What is reset index? If you notice, we have the date as an index here. And if I want to make it as a column, that function will make it as a column. You know, if you look at this table here, and you look at the next table, you'll see the date becomes to be as a column. Got it? Everybody see that? You make it as a column. Okay? Then is removing the missing data. Okay. Next. Okay. That's after I remove the data, I'm getting this data here. So data basically has the date and all those 5 parameters, starting from the GDP and all the other 4 variables in education and export that we want to utilize. Okay, stage number 1, we got the data. Okay, so let's close this one and look at the next stage in the get data. Get data, we fetch the data from the World Bank, and that's what we're getting from the World Bank. And to some extent, I removed the missing data, and that's basically all what I did, okay? And I made the date to be as a column here. Next stage, and that's new, we didn't do it last time. I'm taking the independent variable, the GDP, and put it in a separate variable. Okay, this one is one column, the column of the GDP. Okay, but what this values does, it turns to an array. So it's not, this is a data frame, remember. And now I'm taking this, making it as a one column, or you can say as a one row. Okay, but it's not really one row, it's really 4 columns. So you can say this is like an array of 2 dimensions. All the years for 4 variables. So all those 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's what I will have here, but they are turning as an array. That's what value does. Some things we're doing only for the first, this column, that is the dependent variable. We're taking it from the data frame, converting it into an array, and that's very special command. It takes that row and make it as a column. So it's 2-dimension column, meaning every row has a number, but it's as a one column. And we'll see how that looks like. So let's see how that looks like after we do those 2. So let's see. This is the X, You can tell this is really doesn't have, you see, it doesn't have anymore the titles. It doesn't have the years. It's only the 4 columns made as an array. This is a 2-dimensional array. That's the X. That's after this comment. Because the model is not going to use data frame. It's going to use arrays. And then, in fact, it's even you're converting it it's a NumPy array. That's what it needs. It doesn't work with data frame. So that's what we need to do there. The second one, it's the Y. It takes only 1 column, convert it to an array, but then it makes it as a column. And what does it mean? Let's go down. Look at the Y. It has only 1 column, but it makes it looks like any one of those columns. You see that they're all columns. So it makes this one, okay, it's a 2-dimension, but it's a 1 column. That's what this command is doing. Okay, I hope that's clear. If not, just go over the video and listen to it several times, okay, until you really get it. All right, let's move on. Now that we have the Y and we have the X's, we're going to the next stage. And this one is very important in any AI study, in every AI. We're splitting, we're normalizing the data. What does it mean to normalize? If you notice, a lot of those data could be big numbers, you know, like this one, it's a very big number. The export and import, very big numbers. Everyone could be a different scaling. Some of the GDP, it could be a huge number. Education, the country spending on education could be smaller numbers. So a common thing to do is to normalize the data. What does it mean? Okay, so let me go, and that's one also, we usually put a second function, separate function. So you can see, we're putting the data in one function from the World Bank. The next function is normalizing the data. Stage number 2, normalize the data. Now, what do we do in the normalization? Okay, we take all the data, by the way, you see we have 4. We have the X and the Y. By the way, hold a second. I think I skipped some stage. Apology. Yeah, I skipped one stage. I apologize. This one, as a second, it's splitting the data. If you remember, we have the X and the Y, okay? This is the X with all the 4 variables. And then we have the Y with 1 variable. Now, what we want to do is take only part of the data of the X, only this part, for example, 80% of it, to put it separately. Equivalently, with it, we'll take the same 80% of the Y. Okay, so 80% of the X and 80% of the Y, we're putting separately. We call them the training data. The other 20%, okay, we call it a test data. We'll come back to that and we'll explain what do we do with that one. Fair enough? So we have a mechanism to train and test, and we split it. By the way, Python provide you with a special function called train test split. So if I transfer to it the X and the Y, I tell him I want the test to be 20%. You can ignore this one for now, okay? And 20% make it the test. So you will make, instead of having only for training, Y for training, X for test, and Y for test. So instead of only 2, like the X and the Y, I would have X and test split it to 80% and 20%, and the Y for training and Y for test. Okay, so I split it. So I have now 4 bunches, in fact. And here we go. I printed it for you. So let's look at that, how they look like here. Okay, that was the X and the Y. And now here we go. You see the X train, it's only 80% of the whole group. You can tell this is less than the whole things, which is the original one. This is the original X, but I took only 80% of it now. And the other one, 20% is for the test. Fair enough? The same things I do for the Y. I split the Y 80% and the test 20%. Beautiful. That's stage number 2. Apologies, I skipped on that one. Very important stage. So let's go and rewrite it again. Let's call that one A, pull data. Okay, stage number 2. B is split the data. And by the way, I want to comment it to myself. Okay, you really should do better even. Okay, I won't get into that now. Since this is data that goes over time, you might want to split it differently than this one. This one is randomly taking 20% and 80%. In this kind of data, we'll talk about data time series data, but won't get into that now because we're trying to understand the structure first. But then we'll get and dive into deeper into all of that. So stage number 2, split the data. We have a training data and we have a test data, okay? And that's what we saw here. Next comes the normalization. Normalization is, instead of getting numbers, could be a lot of numbers, and also from training the model, it's good to transfer all the data to be between 0 to 1. Very common to do that. How do we do that? We usually do it in a function called normalized data. So in this function, I get all those 4 groups: the training of the X, the Y of the train, the X of the test, and the Y of the test, and I'm normalizing all of them. I'm trying to convert all the data between 0 to 1. Fortunately, we have Python provide us with something that knows how to do that, okay? And by the way, if you notice I skipped before, there is a component called min-max scaler. This is an object that Python provides. I'm using 1 for the X's and I'm using 1 for the Y. Now pay attention. Many people make a mistake here. Okay, and pay attention to the order. I do the scaling. Okay, so I'm using this object to do the work. So that's the scale X and scale Y. I'm going to use those two to scale the data. Pay attention to the order. Many people screw it up. Pay attention that the first one I'm utilizing on the training X. And pay attention, we have a function called feed and transform. What it does really, the feed function is always a function that study. It learn about the X's. Okay, by the way, we didn't have to write the code. It's just Python have done it for us. Okay, so the feed is studying. And after it's studying, when I do transform, is applying the method. What does it study? The truth of the matter, this is an object I could have written. It's a very simple object. But it's really good to use objects that already exist. It takes the train X and it goes at every column. It looks what is the maximum and what is the minimum. Okay? That's what it does in the training. When it is applying, after you know the minimum and the maximum, is converting all the data. The maximum becomes to be 1, the minimum becomes to be 0, and all the other numbers will be between 0 to 1. That's the way this scaler does. So I feed the data and I'm transforming it, so I'm getting a new train X, something it does for the Y, and is scanning the Y. So now I have all this data between 0 to 1, all of this data between 0 to 1. The X test, we don't do feed and transform. We're utilizing because this scalar X, we already trained it on the training variables. So we want to keep the test and the training data to be on the same scalar. So I'm using only the training data to teach the algorithm, meaning it's going to take the minimum and the maximum of the training, and then it's going to convert the test data based on the minimum and the maximum of the training data. I hope that's clear. Many people putting here fit and train, that would be an error. It won't be a good idea. You do only the transform, because if I put fit and transform, it will utilize only the test data to convert it. It will convert everything between 0 to 1, but will not use the same mean and max as using it for the trend. And that's a very important. One day I will even dive into that as well. Okay, but for now, it will be overwhelming if I would go deeper in every topic. For now, I just want to get the structure. Okay, well, I know. So beautifully, what the end result? So I printed out here. You have normalized data for the training and the Y and the test. So let's look at the data. I printed it here for you so you can see it. Let me go down. Here we go, normalized X training. You can tell all the data between 0 to 1. All the data. Here we go. You get a 1 here. You can tell that was a maximum before. When it gets a 0, that's what it was the minimum at that time. Beautiful. Some things, it's for the normalized X test and normalized Y test, all between 0 and 1. Beautiful. We now got all the data between 0 and 1, and we normalize that stage number C. That's C, normalizing data. Beautiful. Now, finally, we got a nice data. We cleaned it up. By the way, it's not ready yet for training. That's another way, another stage. I want also spend a lot of time on that one. Okay, each one of them is a great topic. But for now, just to get the structure, last one, and I will call it let's call it a D. Prepare data for the model. Okay, here it's very simple relatively. Okay, and when we get into convolution, when we get the recurrent neural network, those ones are much more sophisticated. We'll have to do this stage will be much more sophisticated and very hard too, honestly. This one is relatively easy. And thank God we have already Python providing us with all what we need. The first function is in TensorFlow. For the children, it's a TensorFlow libraries, and it has a function from Tensor Slicer. What does it do? Okay. What it really, by the way, if you have a good eye, you can tell the normalization data. Look at that. This is important. I skipped it. I didn't emphasize it. If you notice, we're getting 4 blocks. Okay. We're normalizing it, and then we're returning the data. We're returning 4, but making them as 2 groups. This is the train X and Y, and the test X, Y. For us, it's like 2 blocks. So that's why, if you notice, when the returning of those 2 tuples, I'm getting them into the train data and the test data. By the way, if you remember now, I remind you, we defined them as none before when the object was created. Here we go. Now they are filled. After the normalization, those 2 variables has values there. They are not none anymore. Okay? Now just remember that if I want the X from, if I want the X's, that will be 0. You know, train data, parenthesis 0 will give me the X. If I want the Y, it will be the 1. I'll have to put 1 there. Okay, so what I'm doing now, I'm slicing the X, by the way, the Y, the test, I don't really need to do that, only for the training, and I will explain in a minute, okay, in a second. I'm taking the train X and the train Y, that's really what those do, and I'm telling the computer, slice them. What does it really do? The children will remember by this point, we have only arrays. Those are all arrays. But this one ensures that every row, okay, let me go up again. Let's look at the normalized X. The first row, I want to make sure this first row will match the first row in the Y, which is this one. okay? And the second one will match the second number. That's what this one does. That's all. You don't need to know everything by heart. Just know that this function, when you have this kind of data, you can use it. It will make sure that those ones will go together. Finally, okay, the truth of the matter, this one you don't have to do, but it's really good to know. We're taking now all this data and we're breaking them to what is known as a batch data set. What is this batch data set? It says if I have a lot of, this one is a very small database, okay? It's extremely small. So I really could get away without really doing all of that. In fact, I didn't really need those two, but it's good to put them there so you know in the future you always will do some stuff like this. The next stage is taking the first 32 rows, okay, of the X and the Y as a block. Since here we don't really have a lot of data, we have only data from 82 to 2022, we have only 40. So it's going to take 32 rows, and then the next one going to be the remaining, will be another 8 or something like that. This one is breaking those data into chunks, which is going to utilize when he's teaching the model. We didn't really talk about the model yet, okay? But for now, we're just preparing the data. Now that trend data is nicely organized, it has the trend X and the trend Y, but split it with 32 of the X and 32 of the Y, 8 and 8 as ready to be processed into the model. This is the end, those 4 stages that we have here in the get data, basically prepare my data for teaching the model. We haven't talked about the model at all, okay? We just, up to now, we spend the time to get the data in here. This is this function. The beauty, this function now, I can forget about it. I know this is work and can work for any country. Can you utilize, I can transfer Uganda. When I'm transferring here, the Uganda from here, it will get the data for Uganda. I want for the US, I choose US and I click here. It goes through the whole process, gets to the Python, Python get the country US, call the function of the World Bank will send me the data, it will clean the data, it normalize it, and break it to chunks of 32 rows and columns. Beautiful. Okay, and the beauty here, it makes it that I can even add other countries. I can add Israel too. By the way, if I can do that, by the way, I can do it here. Let me add Israel. Okay, let me put Israel there. See how beautiful it becomes to be. ISR, I think it's Israel. Okay, let me refresh. Now I have, what is it? Which one is it? I always get lost here. Which one is it? Where's the regression? Here we go. I think it's this one. Here we go. Now I'll have Israel. I will choose Israel and it will work. I will click on it. Bingo. Yes. Let's look at it. Hope everything will work. Here we go. Here we go. This is data for Israel. Beautiful. The whole process. Now he's doing it for Israel because I transferred the country to be Israel. And he does the whole stages of preparing the data. He is converting it, the Y, normalizing it, and then I'm getting all the data. Here is the normalized data ready for the model. This is really the teaching the model, which is our next stage and really the important stage. Up to now, this process, it's similar to all the studies in AI. Okay, and we'll get more sophisticated on what we're trying to do, but those steps of getting the data, normalizing it, preparing it for the model, they are built in the structure. We will get more sophisticated. We'll make this, instead of this simple, for now it's simple, very complex the first time, will make these objects to be much more sophisticated, to do much more stuff. For now, it's beautiful. By the way, many people are getting a master degree. This is the job for a master degree. You'll get an A+ if you'll be able to do it for a master. Okay, so this is really already making a lot of progress. Good. Now that we got the data, okay, we're getting into the model. We have model fit, but we haven't talked about it at all. Which model are we going to use? And here we go. This is, honestly, when we're talking about AI, it's only what we started today. We talked about the structure of the data and preparing it to the model, but we haven't talked about the model in more specific, okay? Now, when we talked about here in the picture, I showed you this image, okay? We have 4 variables, okay? And we have a unit that be able to do the work. What does it mean? The unit, I'm going to give him all the X data, the training X data. I'm going to give them the Y, that's the output. And he will try to find the weights. What does it mean, the weight? So it will take every number. Let's say for a specific year, I have the export, the education, the high tech, all those 4. I will multiply each one of them by a parameter. I will add another parameter, add them up. That should be equal to the Y, exactly as we do in a regression. Okay, let me just make 1 here. Make a 1 here so you can see. Okay, pay attention. We have here those coefficients. You see, this is for the export. This is for, you see those numbers? If you find those numbers, the model is finding. Is finding those numbers, the first number here, that's what we call on the Y, you know, it's like the constant in an equation, in a straight line equation. This is a straight line equation, but it's a line in a 4-dimension space. So we have the parameters before the expert is trying to find a parameters, the best parameters going for the export, the best parameters for the education. But what is the criteria? Is finding those parameters such that eventually, when I try to use this equation for the GDP, that GDP will be as close as possible to the real one. Okay, what does it mean? We'll go over that again. If we look at the data, let's go all the way up. The original data, okay? Look at that one. We have this number, we have this number, 4 numbers. I want to take a parameters multiplied by the first number, parameters by the second, another parameters for the third and the fourth. If I multiply it, I get a number. I will add it to it some other parameters. I will get a number. I want to choose those 4 parameters such that whatever I get, it will be as close as possible to this number. It will not get the same, it will be very close. The difference between those 2, that's what we call an error. It's not really an error. It's how close it is. If it's a big number, it's far away. And we try to find those parameters such that those closeness to be as close as possible. We do it for all the rows, but pay attention. We always use the same parameters. I hope that's clear, okay? As we go along, it will make sense more and more, okay? Okay, so that's what this model is supposed to do. How do I define that model? And here, we'll get to it, okay? We have a function called getModel. We usually put it in the constructor of this object. This is the one that's managing the whole project. Inside, we use a function called getModel. Here we go. You see, this one, getModel, it's a function that we create. Inside, we're specifying the model, okay? So now we're jumping to another stage in AI process. Stage number 1 was getting data. Stage number 2 is getting the model. The model itself could be very complex. We're going to use the simplest one neural network model. How do we specify it? Let's look at this function. Have the get data. Here we go. We have get model. Let's look at it. This is the simplest you can get, really. And beautifully, TensorFlow has provided us with really specifying those models. And see how beautiful it is. It tells me, I'm specifying, get a sequence. That's something we'll see a lot. Okay, I will try to finish today only this one. And we'll spend another session on this one again. I will repeat myself and I will specify it again and again. So we'll go over that stuff again and again. It's not easy stuff, okay? Especially when it's your first time. TensorFlow built a lot of components ready for you to use. Now, in this one, there is something called a sequence. You can build many kinds. In fact, not really many, there's two. But one, the mostly used is sequential. What does the mean sequential? That you can have stage by stage. This case, we have only one layer. So it's very simple, okay? So the sequence will have only one layer. Okay, so stage number one, we're telling TensorFlow, start creating a sequence of layers. And since we have only one layer, we're adding that layer. See, the model has a function called add. TensorFlow has done all the work for us. Which kind of a layer I want? I want neural network. That's the important line from the whole project here. This is the heart of the model. That's why we're doing the whole things. We want to learn about this model. This model saying, you know what I want? I want the model to have input of 4 variables. That's the input shape. Okay, and why do I specify 4? Remember, we have those 4 variables. Okay, you see, the export, the education, natural resources, high-tech. Those 4 is going to be the input to the neural network. Then I want the output, okay? The output going to be only 1. And why is 1? Because that's going to be the y, okay? So the input going to be 4 and the output going to be 1. Just to remind you, if we look at this picture, I told you this one is ready for this study. We have coming out, okay? So specifying a neural network like this one is as simple as 1 line of code. There's one more thing, okay? One more thing that I'm just putting a linear, so I'm going to skip it. This linear is not doing anything. So for now, I'm going to skip it. But I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about it. By the way, linear, it means whatever the numbers come, that's the output. Don't do anything to it. So you take the input, you're getting one output, and after you get the output, do nothing to it. Linear, it means whatever you get it out. But it's not always the case. We'll use sigmoid, tenet, many kinds we'll see in the future. There are very special functions for the output. For now, we skip it. We use linear. By the way, if you see in the picture, this is the sigmoid function. Okay, this is called a sigmoid. I'm not going to use it. We're going to use a linear, will be a straight line, doing nothing. So just to make the case, since it's your first one, make it as simple as possible. Okay, this is it. This is, I specified the neural network. Now, okay, the model is going to teach, it's going to find the parameters. Don't forget, the whole exercise is finding those parameters, the constant and those 4 parameters. I'm telling him, go and find it. And you know, there's so many models how to do it. And this last one, the third one is compiled. It's usually, this is always will be the last line. This one I will explain in a minute. You can skip it for now and put it there to save the data, but it really doesn't have to be for the first one. I will skip this one, but I am going to spend time on this one. This one is telling the model how to find the link between those 4 columns and the Y column. How do you do that? I'm telling him mean square error. This is one function that I'm telling him, utilize mean square error. What does it mean? It means you try to find those parameters such that when you multiply each column by each one of those parameters, adding the constant, you will be as close as possible to this number. Do it for all of them. And take all of them, the average of that error to be minimum. That's what I want you to do. Minimum square error. Take the error, meaning the difference. Put square, meaning why does square? Because if you get a negative number, you don't just add them. No, make it square. Then every minus is also turned to a positive. Add them all up. I think I showed it in the Excel, and I explained it once in the Excel when we did the 1 parameters. Okay, same things is here. Just this one, you have more parameters. That's the mean square error. I'm telling him, utilize it. Then there is this one. I won't spend time. This is a whole session. We talk about optimizers. This is really a whole topic for you. For now, use Adams. Okay, it's already the name of a person. This is an acronym for stochastic divergence gradients, but I won't get into it. Okay, it's not the name of a person. It's a kind of an acronym of something that knows how to utilize this minimum mean square error to find those parameters. So to be practical, what do I see in this get model? I am specified that I want to use a model of sequence. And this sequence has only one layer of neural network. For input, one output, don't touch the output. Okay? And then I'm giving him instructions, utilize an optimizer, because the algorithm, the computer has many kinds. Use this one. Usually this one does a job, excellent job for this kind of simple work. We'll talk about it, a whole section, which kind of optimizer to use for what, and we will see. Finally, which criteria to use mean square error. I define this one, I ignore. We'll talk about it when we're training the model several times. We want to keep the data. And this one does the keeping the data, but I don't really need it for now. I'm not really utilizing it. Okay. I like to put it just to tell you, we'll utilize it in the future. And you will see as we progress, you will find out that we're repeating ourselves. So if today it's a hard session for you, which should be a hard one, okay, I remember my first time I was exposed, it will repeat itself. You will see. Checkpoint, okay, model, you will see we'll use it a lot. Create model will use a lot. Get data will use a lot. This structure will repeat itself. And then eventually will start being clearer and clearer. Okay, by the way, this stage is only building the model. Okay, and after it builds the model, by the way, if you have a good eye, you can tell this one is defined. This is a good programming habit, is defining the init as a null. And right after that, when I create the model, I call this function, this one is not null anymore. And it will occupy it by this one. So I have the model now. Now that I have the model, and that's the last one, I will just mention it, so I'll go over it next time. Now that I have the specification of the model, I try to remember the fit. Remember when we did scaling, there was a fit and transform. Here I'm teaching the model. I'm teaching the model with this data. By the way, the trend data, okay, if you remember, this trend data has if you remember, okay, what is the trend data? It has the X and the Y. Remember that? We combine them after the normalization. I tell the model, run into epochs. I will talk about it next time. Remember the batch size? And I split the data with 32. So this one is telling him fit it based on chunks of 32 data. where there's a hell of a lot going on here, but it can't really absorb everything in one time. For now, just put it there, and only things you know, I'm filling the data with the trend data. Okay? There is another thing called validation, but ignore that for now. All what I really need, I could have done, by the way, I could have really finished it here, even this way. It will work. Okay? It will work. It will just do it as a one batch or do one epoch. Okay? And will not use any validation. I didn't talk about validation at all. Okay? This is will teach the model. The model will learn everything it needs to. And then when he learn, I just get the data and present it here, which we'll do next time. We have a lot yet to go. We'll repeat ourselves again. I will go and talk about that one next time. And I don't want to really overload you. It's not easy stuff. Okay? So what did we do today? We finished the get data. I won't go over that next time. I will start next time from defining again the model. I will go over this create model, and then we will start the feed. What does the feed does and what the output from that model. And then after I get the output, I transfer it again to JavaScript. We get it into the JavaScript. And after we get it to the JavaScript, we just put the data right on the screen. Okay? That's what we do next time. Okay, anyone has questions, guys? I remember my first one. It was really not an easy one. That's a hard section. Any questions, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question would be, what's the criteria of choosing the percentage to give for training and testing?
Beautiful, beautiful. It's a whole topic.
Then,
It's a whole
yeah,
topic.
then
And we will talk about, you see, we call it the testing, we call it validation. We'll use different methods. It's quite common to do 20-80. Okay? Not necessarily. Many times we use 90 and 10. If you have a lot of data, okay, you might use 30 and 70, because 70 would be enough to train the data. And then you want to see how good it is doing on the testing. I didn't get there yet. We'll get there. And as I said, I will repeat myself several times. There's another method called cross-validation system. In that one, you can make 20-80, but you shuffle the data. I will talk about it. It's a whole topic, but it's a wonderful question. How do you choose? 20, 10, 30? Absolutely right. Good question. For now, it's common to do 20 and 80. If you have a huge data, you might use 30 and 70. If you have a lot of data, that will be, there's a lot of method. You might use 10 and 90, but then you do something called bootstrapping. There's a lot of method to compensate for the fact you don't have a lot of data. Okay, but that's a good question. Moreover, you might do 10 and 90 and you use what is known as cross-validation, as I just said, but that's a whole other topic. We'll come and visit those one as we get into, when we get our hand and we already know the structure. More questions, guys? Go ahead, guys, don't be shy. There is no such a thing as a stupid question.
the other question would be, let's say for someone who's learning this and they are new to data analysis, and let's say they're trying to clean that data and they don't know, let's say they're cleaning that data and then they have like a dash or a miss, not a none, but a dash. So is it necessary to remove it, or should they leave it and then leave it empty, or is that meaning attached to that?
Beautiful. When you have a missing data, that's called missing data. I use it the simplest way to deal with it. I remove the one that had missing data. But the truth of the matter, there's a hell of a lot of topic. How do I handle missing data? Some people do, by the way, I think I removed it. Okay. Okay, I put it originally and I didn't want to dive into it. you can fill up the data, and there's many ways you can do it. Okay, it's a whole topic. Again, I don't want to overload your thinking. At least you get the structure, and then you know it's a topic you need to deal with when you get there. Where is it? Is it here? No, it's here. Okay. You can use a fill NA. There's a function called fill NA. It will take the previous data and put it in, let's say 1920, it's a missing. So you can tell him, you know, take the year before. Use 1999 instead of 2000. If, let's say 2020 was missing. So you can use 2019 as another one. You can use the average of all the years. There's many other methods. There's something that can make even an internal regression. Use the other variables for the years you do have data and estimate for that specific data. But the whole topic, beautiful question, it really is. All of those people handle. They are not easy questions. And for now, I just didn't want to, I was focusing so you get the structure. And then you dive into every topic and extend it. At least you have a nice framework, a nice way of thinking. Okay, so I just did the simplest way, I think. Where is that? Yeah, here we go. I just did a very simple way. I just removed all the missing data. Okay, that's not a good way to handle it. For now, it's excellent because that's making us to focus on the structure. And then on this one, by the way, you can make a function handle missing data. And then you transfer the data to it. You do a special model, you finish it, and you get the data according to what you did. And it will be easy for you to expand it. Okay? More questions, guys? Please, I want to hear more questions. Don't be shy. There is no such a thing as a stupid question, honestly. Okay, don't be shy. Ask something. What the hell? Can't be that everything's clear.
Yeah. Pippa, I think you can ask questions. You also
I would
had
like
something
to
of
ask, you know what? I would ask, but you don't have to answer, okay? How many of you really, all right, there's not really a question as much as just to know about, how many of you really know Python enough so you can really get the maximum of my session? Because I'm not really going deeply every line. I'm trying to give as much as I can. But I think you will need more knowledge of Python, okay? I'm focusing on TensorFlow, Keresa, NumPy, pandas, some function of Python, over, you know, inheritance. A lot of things I'm skipping. I'm not really going into it. But guys, are you comfortable with it? I think you would be very smart to enhance it. And honest to God, this is the topic that everyone will love to study, to be able to study. I strongly recommend enhance your knowledge in Python, in JavaScript, and web applications, and dive and spend the next 3 years. You know, in the first 6 months, you'll get a hell of a lot. But it will take you at least 3 years. So somebody would like to hire you and pay you $2,000 or $3,000 a month. You can get there. It takes time, okay? And even more. And over time, this is, people will love to be able to be exposed to this kind of study. Honestly, it's a master and above. AI is for master and above. We're trying to skip a lot of this knowledge that you don't really need and do it. But in the end, if you really want to be useful and valuable, be a good programmer, be a little mathematician. I'm avoiding a lot of the math, but we will be exposed a little bit. As time goes by, I don't want to expose you to that right now. We will be exposed. And honestly, you can't get wrong. You know, I know Uganda very well. I know a lot of other countries. I look at Israel. I don't know how much you guys know about Israel. Israel is a high-tech country, okay? You can tell, you know, I don't know if you're following the war here in Israel. We are such a small country. We are being bombed from all over. Iran is a country 10 times bigger than us, more than 10 times. we have a much